My name is Juniper Wade, and I'm 29 years old. The day I closed on my first house, my hands shook so hard I almost smeared the signature. Not from fear, from 8 years of grind finally landing as keys on my palm. Grocery store shifts at 16. Pizza deliveries in a busted car that coughed through winters. Community college by day, boot camps by night. Certifications, help desk, Tier 1, Tier 2. Cybersecurity at last. I'd been saying no to everything I couldn't afford for so long that saying yes to this felt like learning a new language. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a backyard with a stubborn maple that threw lacework shadows across the grass. Nothing flashy, just mine. 2 days after closing, my phone pinged with a text from Dad. Dad, we need to discuss the house situation. Call immediately. I called, still thinking it might be about visiting, or the fence, or whether the maple needed trimming. The kind of practical thing dads can't resist opining on. It wasn't. Dad didn't even clear his throat first. Look, honey, we've been talking as a family, and we think it's only fair that Melissa gets the house. The laugh leapt out of me before I could stop it. Sorry, what? She's struggling, he continued, gaining steam like he'd practiced. Student loans, rent in the city. You're doing well. You can easily buy another house. I saved for 8 years, I said. There is no spare house. Mom slipped onto the line, warm and weaponized. We raised you, Juniper, supported you. Now it's time to give back to the family. Your sister deserves stability. The old ledger, dusted off, the kind that only ever tallies in one direction. I could picture Melissa's life. Private university, art history masters, 2 semesters abroad, spring breaks with oceans I'd never seen. My parents paid for it all. They bought her a car at 16. When I asked for $200 once for textbooks, Mom said, "We're focusing on Melissa's education right now." I learned not to ask again. I put the down payment on this house, I said, keeping my voice even. The mortgage is in my name. Dad's tone climbed a rung. Family helps family. Don't be selfish. There it was, the word that always appears. When you won't hand over what you earned. Selfish. I stared at the half-unpacked boxes in my living room, the modest couch I'd bought used, the thrifted dishes, the toolbox my grandpa had given me. Everything in here had a receipt with my name on it. Mom tried a softer angle. Think how hard it's been for your sister, Junie. The loans, the unstable housing. You're strong. You can handle starting over. I just started, I said. Here. When Dad started shouting about moral obligations and how dare you make us do this, I did something I'd never done on a call with them. I hung up. I stood very still in the quiet afterward, the way you wait after a lightning strike for the thunder to find you. It didn't take long. A week later, a process server knocked on my door. My own last name sat like a bruise on the envelope. Inside, a lawsuit. My parents were suing me for my house. I read the claims 3 times because the first 2 felt like satire. They had itemized child-rearing costs, $300,000, rounded for convenience, as if love bills at an hourly rate. They asserted a parental right to redistribute family assets. They argued Melissa needed the house more due to her loans, and that I could afford to buy another home. The kicker? They demanded I transfer title to Melissa and continue paying the mortgage for 2 years, until she gets on her feet. I set the papers down and walked into the backyard. The maple stirred. Somewhere a dog barked, and a neighbor laughed. The world went on, unbothered by the idea that parents were in court trying to repossess their adult daughter. I called Grandpa first. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You built your life, kiddo. Keep it." His voice didn't tremble. It boomed. "And tell your father that if he wants to price out parenthood retroactively, I'll send him an invoice for 45 years. I almost smiled. I didn't have 10 grand lying around for an attorney. I'd just bled my savings for the down payment, moving costs, and the first wave of boring house necessities. Hoses, filters, the kind of purchases that make you feel like an adult and a bank at the same time. So I did what I've always done when the ground shifts. I researched. Hard. Could I represent myself? Everyone says don't. But absurd cases eat money, and money was how they thought they could corner me. I started building my file, bank statements tracing every dollar in the down payment from my savings, mortgage documents in my name only, employment records showing steady work and later promotions, tax returns, emails from a decade ago where I'd asked my parents for a small book stipend and Mom replied, "We're focusing on Melissa's education right now." I scanned everything. labeled every folder like I was briefing my own heist. 2 nights later, my aunt, Dad's sister, posted a vague book screed about ungrateful children who forget where they came from. She'd never liked me. I learned through cousins who screenshot with the zeal of archivists that she was financing my parents' lawsuit. The reason? I hadn't invited her to my community college graduation. I hadn't actually walked. No ceremony, no cap, just a transcript. But apparently not giving her a photo op was a sin with interest. Melissa, meanwhile, began posting Pinterest-perfect photos of houses. Can't wait to make this house a home. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for fighting for what's right. Family first. Not my address, but close enough to make my stomach pitch. The comments filled with airy hearts and so happy for you, while my hands cataloged receipts like rosary beads. Dad texted again. Settle before this gets ugly. Ugly was how they described the moment I refused to vanish. A bargain lawyer, clearly my aunt's find, emailed an offer. Full title transfer to Melissa. I would pay the mortgage 24 months. An additional cash payment for emotional damages, and a formal apology letter for splitting the family. I laughed out loud. It came out like a bark and startled even me. Then I closed the email and returned to my file. The court scheduled the first hearing for 2 months out. Backlog. 2 months to prepare while the internet churned and the family grapevine fermented. Mom posted a captioned slideshow of my childhood. Me missing tooth, me at 11 holding a science fair ribbon, me at 16 behind a grocery register, ending with, some children forget where they came from. We gave Juniper everything, our love, our support, our values, and this is how she repays us. Melissa has loans and no housing. A good daughter would help her family. Some would say, disappointed mother. Hatched family values. Underneath, my aunt commented, shameful. Your sister needs that house more than you need your selfishness. I didn't reply. I screenshotted. I archived. I went for a run even though I hate running because I needed to hear breath and not other people's opinions. When I got home, there was a text from Mom to the family thread. Due to recent events and Juniper's decision to harm her sister's future, she is not welcome at family gatherings until she does the right thing. Thanksgiving embargoed. Fine. I'd order Chinese and watch football in my living room, in my house, with my name on the deed. That night, I stood in the doorway to the smallest bedroom, the one I'd planned to turn into a workshop. The walls were plain. The floor had that faint new paint echo. I pressed my palm to the doorframe and said, out loud, "You're mine." Not because paper said so, though paper would help. Because I earned it. Because the girl stocking shelves at midnight had promised me a door I could lock and unlock with keys no one could take away. They were going to try anyway. I looked down at the stack of pleadings and evidence and thought, okay, let's go. The fear didn't leave. It just made room for another feeling, colder, steadier. Not rage, not even defiance. Resolve. Some families pass down heirlooms. Mine decided to pass down a lawsuit. I would meet it the only way I knew how. Organized, relentless, and with receipts. The maple outside shifted in the wind, a sound like slow applause. I took it as a sign. The morning after being officially uninvited from Thanksgiving, I brewed coffee strong enough to strip paint and open my laptop. If my parents wanted a war of family values, I'd fight it with documentation. My spreadsheet glowed back at me. Columns for dates, bank transactions, mortgage statements, notarized copies. My fingers moved like I was coding firewall rules, except this time the attack was personal. That same morning, a cousin sent me a screenshot from Facebook. There it was, Mom's new post. Some children climb ladders just to kick them away from the family that built them. My daughter Juniper has turned her back on love, on loyalty, on her own sister. But we still believe in forgiveness. Family first. Pray for healing. The comments were a casserole of pity and gossip. And front and center, Aunt Beverly with her trademark venom. Ungrateful children forget who paid for their diapers. Melissa deserves that home. Every word was a performance, but I didn't clap. 2 weeks later, my aunt's money hired them a lawyer who looked like he specialized in parking tickets and personal injury commercials at 2 a.m. Still, he sent me a settlement offer. Transfer full title to Melissa Wade. Continue mortgage payments for 24 months. Pay an additional $30,000 for emotional damages. Provide written apology for splitting the family. I stared at it, then laughed. Out loud. Alone. The sound startled even me. Hayden. No, wrong story. This one I was alone. I emailed back one sentence. I'll see you in court. When the hearing date arrived, I showed up prepared. Pressed suit. Folders labeled and cross-referenced. I wasn't planning on theatrics, but apparently they were. Outside the courthouse, my parents, Aunt Beverly, and Melissa stood like a parody of unity. Matching t-shirts, bold white text, family first. It would have been funny if it hadn't been my life. Melissa spotted me and performed her first act of the day, rushing forward with arms wide. I forgive you for making us do this, she announced loudly enough for reporters to hear. I sidestepped her. Save it for the stand. Inside, the courtroom buzzed like an audience before a bad play. The judge entered, a woman with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. The lawyer started his opening. Your Honor, my clients have invested their love, time, and resources into raising the defendant. She now denies her sister basic stability despite being in a financial position to share. This is not about money. It's about moral duty. The judge tilted her head. You're suing for a moral duty? He stammered. In essence, yes. Then came their exhibits. A photo album of me as a child, birthday parties, Disneyland trips, braces. Melissa's loan statements. A spreadsheet claiming $300,000 in child-raising expenses, including a 2003 Happy Meal. Mom dabbed at her eyes dramatically as the lawyer read them aloud. Then he produced Melissa's business plan, a 5-page document titled The Artist Retreat. It proposed converting my home into a studio/content house. The judge blinked. Ms. Wade, do you have employment? Melissa smiled sweetly. I'm in a transitional period focusing on my creative brand. Do you have income? Mom jumped in. She's an artist, a digital content creator. The judge, unimpressed. And that produces how much? Melissa shrugged. Building an audience takes time. The judge scribbled something, probably none. Then it was my turn. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't perform. I handed over bank statements, mortgage contracts, and pay stubs. Proof that every cent of that down payment came from me. Proof that I'd been financially independent since I was 18. Judge, I said evenly, they didn't contribute a single dollar. They didn't even co-sign. The only family investment here is emotional guilt. The judge's eyebrow lifted. That seems accurate. When she took it under submission, the air felt like static. Days later, the letter arrived. Case dismissed for lack of merit. That night, I didn't celebrate. I just sat on my back steps under the maple tree, holding the paper. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled without trembling. But peace doesn't last when pride is wounded. Outside the courthouse, everything collapsed in public view. My aunt hissed, "You're dead to this family." Mom sobbed, "You're no longer my daughter." Dad pointed a shaking finger. "You've destroyed us." Melissa dropped to her knees like a soap opera star. "You've stolen my future." Reporters caught everything. Someone filmed. Within hours, the video hit Facebook. Family loses lawsuit against daughter for house. Half the comments sided with them. The other half called them monsters. It didn't matter. The circus had begun. That night, I scrolled through my security app and noticed something strange. Motion lights flickering in my driveway. I replayed the footage. Melissa, in her ridiculous Family First t-shirt, approached my car, looked around, then left. An hour later, Aunt Beverly appeared with a spray paint can, but turned back when the lights snapped on. I filed a police report the next morning. By the weekend, the online smear campaign started. Melissa launched a GoFundMe titled, "Help Me Buy a House After My Sister Stole My Future." She used Pinterest photos again. Captioned, "Dreams can still come true if we stand together." It gained traction fast, then it backfired faster. People found the court records. News sites picked it up. The fundraiser was shut down for misrepresentation. Mom doubled down with another post. Some people may win in court, but they lose their soul. Grandpa replied publicly, "You lost both." It was the first time I'd seen him post online, ever. The next day he called. "Dinner Sunday?" he asked. "Bring that paperwork. I'll help you build a better filing cabinet. You're going to need it if they keep this up." I smiled. Dinner sounds good. I was bruised, but not broken. The lawsuit had stripped something raw, but it also revealed what was left when false loyalty burns away. Truth. And now that I'd fought for my home, I planned to live in it. Really live, even if that meant family gatherings by invitation only, and none pending. I used to think courtrooms were quiet, sacred places. They aren't. They hum like waiting rooms for chaos. Murmurs. heels clicking, nervous laughter echoing off tile. But that morning, the sound that cut through everything wasn't the chatter. It was the squeak of my mother's matching t-shirt. White cotton, bold red letters. Family first. She, my dad, my Aunt Beverly, and my sister Melissa all wore them. Coordinated, ironed, weaponized. I stood across the hall in a gray blazer, holding a file folder with 8 years of evidence, and realized this wasn't about fairness. It was about spectacle. Melissa waved as if we were meeting at brunch. "I forgive you, June," she chirped, voice carrying just enough for the bystanders to turn. I didn't reply. Forgiveness wasn't hers to give. The bailiff called the case. When the judge entered, the whole room tilted toward her. Sharp eyes, iron gray hair, expression of a woman who'd seen every flavor of nonsense and wasn't hungry for more. The opposing lawyer started his opening statement, voice syrupy with fake empathy. "Your Honor, my clients have invested their lives, love, and substantial resources into raising the defendant. Now, she denies her sister stability and shelter. This is not about property, it's about family values." The judge didn't blink. "Are we litigating moral philosophy today, counsel?" He faltered. Well, metaphorically. "Let's stick to legally actionable matters," she said. He cleared his throat, gesturing to my parents. "The plaintiff parents have a vested emotional interest in their daughter's success and seek equitable redistribution of family assets." Equitable redistribution. I almost laughed. Then came their evidence. A photo album of my childhood, as though vacations from 2002 proved joint ownership of my mortgage. A spreadsheet of child-rearing costs, totaling $300,000, each entry more ridiculous than the last. Diapers and formula, $2,100. High school car insurance, Can-Am. Happy Meal, 2003, $12.99. They even printed screenshots of text messages where I said, "Love you guys," presented as proof of emotional indebtedness. Then Melissa took the stand. "I just want to turn her house into something beautiful," she said, eyes wide with rehearsed innocence. "An artist retreat, a safe space for creators." The judge tilted her head. "Are you employed, Ms. Wade?" "I'm a digital content creator," Melissa said proudly. "And your income?" Mom jumped in. "Exposure doesn't pay right away." The judge's hand rose. "I asked your daughter." Melissa hesitated. "I'm still building my brand." The judge sighed, scribbling notes. "Understood. My turn." I stood, file in hand, voice steady. "Your Honor, here are my bank statements, mortgage contracts, and employment records. I've been financially independent since 18. I paid for this house alone." I handed the judge copies. "This claim isn't about need," I said quietly. "It's about entitlement." The judge scanned the pages, lips thinning. "Counsel, did your clients contribute to this purchase in any capacity?" The lawyer's voice cracked. "No, Your Honor, but—" She cut him off. "Then we're done here." 5 days later, a letter arrived. Case dismissed for lack of legal merit. I sat at my dining table, the one I'd built from a thrift store rescue and a weekend of sanding, reading that single sentence again and again. It wasn't just victory, it was validation, proof that reason could still win against madness. But outside the courthouse, reason had no audience. When the dismissal was announced, my family's performance reached its finale. Aunt Beverly hissed, "You're dead to this family." Mom sobbed, "You're no longer my daughter." Dad pointed a trembling finger, "You've destroyed us." And Melissa, oh Melissa, fell to her knees on the courthouse steps, wailing, "You've stolen my future." Someone filmed it, of course. A stranger's phone captured everything. The t-shirts, the theatrics, the judge's dismissal still echoing down the hallway. By evening, the clip had gone viral in our town's Facebook groups. Family loses lawsuit against daughter over her own house. The comments section turned into a civil war. Half the people scolded me for forgetting my roots. The other half crowned me a folk hero. I thought it might fade after a few days. It didn't. Melissa's social media flared up again. She posted old pictures of herself holding paintbrushes in soft light, captioned, "Dreams don't die, they're just delayed by greed." Aunt Beverly doubled down, calling local gossip pages to expose the truth. Mom posted in the church group, "Pray for our daughter who has chosen money over love." It was a mess, loud, humiliating, relentless. But the real turning point came quietly. That evening, my security app pinged. Motion detected. Driveway. I checked the feed. Melissa, hoodie up, walking toward my car. She looked around, reached for the handle, then froze when the motion light flicked on. She backed away fast. An hour later, Aunt Beverly appeared with a spray paint can, only to flee when the same light snapped bright. I called the police, filed a report, and sent them the footage. The officer at the station raised his eyebrows when I explained who the suspects were. Your family? Unfortunately, I said. He sighed. Happens more than you'd think. The next morning, I brewed coffee and sat by the window, watching sunlight crawl across the walls. I should have felt relief, but what I felt was something deeper, a strange, aching calm. Because now, finally, every mask had fallen. The people who'd sworn family first had proven exactly what that meant. Family, so long as you obey. A few days later, Grandpa showed up with takeout and tools. Thought we could install a better lock, he said, and maybe eat lo mein while we're at it. While we worked, he told me stories about the house he built after the war, how he'd hammered every nail himself because he didn't trust anyone else to care that much. He looked at me over his glasses and said, "You've got that same look, kid. That don't mess with my foundation look." I smiled. Guess it runs in the family. He nodded. The right part of it, anyway. The maple rustled outside, leaves whispering like applause. For the first time in months, the sound didn't make me flinch. When the cameras faded and the gossip cooled, silence finally moved in. Heavy, but clean. For the first time in my life, I could hear my own heartbeat in my own house. No more messages from family chat threads. No more phone calls demanding I make things right. Just me, the steady hum of the fridge, and the faint rustle of the maple outside my window. It felt like peace, the kind that doesn't announce itself with fireworks, just the quiet end of a storm. A week after the court dismissal, I came home from work to find a police cruiser parked near my driveway. The officer recognized me immediately. "Ms. Wade, we caught someone on your security footage again," he said. "Your sister tried to pull your mailbox out of the ground. When she saw a neighbor recording, she bolted." He handed me a copy of the report. "You want to press charges?" I hesitated. For a moment, I still saw Melissa at 12, laughing, carefree, painting stars on her bedroom wall. But the woman who had walked up my driveway at midnight with spray paint and entitlement wasn't that sister anymore. "Yes," I said quietly. "I do." He nodded. "Good. People like that need boundaries written in ink." By the next week, the restraining order was approved. It felt surreal, like holding a paper shield between me and people who once tucked me into bed. Mom posted another cryptic status online. "Some children may win in court, but they lose their soul." Grandpa replied publicly, "You lost both." The comment went viral. Half of town screenshotted it. I didn't comment, didn't gloat. I just smiled and texted him, "Thanks for being you." Then came the GoFundMe, Melissa's last grand performance. "Help me buy a home after my sister stole my future." She used Pinterest photos again, wrote a tragic caption, even added, "We can all be part of restoring justice." It hit $500 before it was flagged and taken down for misrepresentation. Apparently, someone had reported it. The IP traced back to Grandpa's neighbor, a retired lawyer who'd followed the entire court case like a Netflix series. When the fundraiser vanished, Aunt Beverly exploded on social media, accusing me of hacking it. Then her employer saw the posts and issued her a formal workplace warning for harassment. Grandpa called again that night, chuckling. "Beverly always said she'd go viral someday," he said. "Guess she wasn't specific how." I started sleeping better. The house didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like mine. I adopted a rescue dog from the shelter, a German Shepherd mix named Luna with one floppy ear and a mistrust of doorbells. She followed me everywhere, her loyalty quiet and unearned. Maybe that's what peace looks like, the kind that doesn't demand proof. 3 months later, the police investigation into the vandalism closed. Melissa was issued a final warning. The restraining order became permanent after she violated it again by driving past the house. The next day, Mom texted, "Finances are tight. Could you help us with the mortgage this month?" I stared at the message for a long time, then I locked my phone and took Luna for a walk. Sometimes silence is the kindest answer you can give. Then came the unexpected call from Grandpa. "Dinner Sunday?" he asked. "Always," I said. That night, he arrived with a cardboard box full of old tools. "Time to teach you woodworking," he said. "If you can build a firewall, you can build a shelf." We spent hours in the garage cutting, sanding, shaping oak into something useful. Between measurements, he talked about family, how love and loyalty are only worth something when they're chosen, not owed. "You did right, kid," he said. "You protected what you built. That's all any of us can do." He paused, wiping sawdust from his hands. Funny thing, he added, your parents say you destroyed the family, but from where I'm standing, you just refuse to let them destroy you. I blinked fast. Thanks, Grandpa. Don't thank me. Build something good with it. Months passed. Winter melted into spring, and life began to look ordinary again. I hosted small game nights with coworkers, filled my fridge with leftovers that no one else claimed, and paid my bills in peace. At work, my manager called me into her office. We're promoting you, she said. You've earned it. For a second, I almost cried, not for the raise, but because I realized how long it had been since anyone said those words to me without bitterness attached. On my days off, I built furniture in the garage. Grandpa came over every Sunday, teaching me the patience of sanding corners and the precision of measuring twice. Sometimes he'd sit on the porch with Luna while I worked. You know, he'd say, you remind me of your grandmother. She built her own garden fence once, just so no one could say they helped. We'd both laugh. One evening, I found an envelope in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. My father's. Juniper, family should stick together. You've made your point. When will you forgive us? I read it once, folded it back, and slid it into my file drawer labeled Evidence, 2024. Some boundaries stay on paper because paper doesn't beg. 6 months after the trial, I stood in the doorway of my house, watching the maple tree sway in the wind. Luna barked once, low and content. This wasn't revenge, it wasn't triumph, it was balance. I'd built something that no lawsuit, no guilt, and no hashtag could touch. Grandpa still comes by every Sunday. We eat lo mein, talk politics, and sand wood in companionable silence. He always leaves with the same line, patting Luna's head on the way out. The best revenge, kiddo, is living well. And I finally believe him. Because when I lock my door at night and hear nothing but Luna's soft breathing and the creak of wood settling, I realize something simple and solid. They didn't take my house. They didn't take my peace. And they'll never take the lesson.